You're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. It's more fun to believe. Third year bonus.
And here we go again. Girls, what's my weakness? Omens. Okay, then. We kind of made it work, didn't we? Welcome to the show. This is Me and Paranormal You. My name is Ryan Singer. I am the host. This is a third-year bonus. This is a solo episode. I say it's a solo episode, but, every once in a while we'll get a call in. Every once in a while, cast members, acquaintances of my mind will show up and they'll contribute to the program. The program, that's how old I am. To the content. I'm not going to call it content. I'll be an old guy. I'll be a grumpy old guy, and I'm not calling it content. So, there is a couple things Nigel wanted me to cover, some housekeeping things. Yeah, I'm going to do that. So, I've got him on mute right now. Maybe Nigel and I will have a discussion. I've had some great, really fun conversations with people in the last handful of days that I can't wait to share those interviews with you when they come out over the next few weeks or the next couple of weeks. I mean, Karen Rontowski was earlier this week. I mean, can we get enough Karen Rontowski? The answer is no. Now, I've never met anyone who doesn't, but let me say that for the record before I go on this tangent. I have never met anyone who doesn't like Karen. But if I were to meet someone who did not like Karen, I would not give that person any more of my time. That would be the last thing I would ever need to know or learn about that person. Is that me drawing too big of a line, deep of a line in the sand? I mean, who would need to be around a person like that? So that's where I stand on the Rontowski front. There is no Rontowski front, by the way. And like I said, I've never met anyone who didn't love Karen Rontowski. So that's the way the universe should be. That's sometimes people are like, the world isn't even real anymore. I'm like, there's a couple different anchors. There's a couple benchmarks that you can rely on to know that the world, in fact, still has some consensus reality to it, which Karen and I spoke about earlier this week. And one of them is how everybody loves Karen Rontowski and Paranormal Karen and Psychic Stand-Up. So go check out her Patreon page. Just go search Paranormal Karen or Karen Rontowski and you'll find it. She does her Patreon much better than I do. She does. I'm not trying to get everybody to jump ship off my Patreon and go over to hers, but I guess I am. She does, it didn't even occur to me that I could just use Zoom. I pay for Zoom. I pay like $20 a month for Zoom. Why am I not using it to do monthly live hangout things or something, right? So we're going to do that here. Maybe I'm going to announce it in the next few days, depending on some things that may or may not shake out here in the next, 72 hours. I hope to have some information about some things. Oh my God, there's other things popping up that might be. I made a trip to Serpent Mound Park. We're going to get into that.
I'd like
so
to
yeah,
jump
I'm going to
in
get
there
into yes.
if I could. I'd like to
Okay,
get into
give
that.
me a second here. Nigel needs to jump
Yes,
on.
I'll do
Okay,
it. You need to
okay.
unmute my microphone so people
Yes,
can hear me.
I have unmuted you. Yes.
Oh, very good. Then.
People
I'm
can
not
hear
gonna
you
say
now.
anything
Yeah,
crazy.
people can hear you. So please
I know.
keep that in mind.
I'm not going to say anything.
Oh no,
crazy.
I've heard you use some pretty sordid language before.
Oh, have I?
I mean, in regards to me.
Yeah,
I'm
I was
not
going to
saying
say I'll never talk crazy about other
No,
people.
I'm not saying about
people I
anything
don't know.
else. In how
Very
you'll talk to me sometimes.
Well, that's how
Yeah,
friends
I know,
talk.
because we've known each other for
Yes.
our entire lives.
That's right, man.
Yeah, so you get a free pass on that.
That's quite
So what
a
did you
lot.
want to? What did you want to let everybody know?
Oh, well, first of all, I'll let you know I appreciate the free pass. While we're handing out free passes, is that what we're doing now?
Yeah,
we're passing
I mean,
out
It's
free
a figure of speech, Nigel.
for speech and things like that.
Yeah.
Interesting. First of all, I'm going to make a note of that.
Okay.
I'm going to put a marker in the book about that.
I'll bookmark.
And I'm going to circle back, as you'd say. Make a circle as I come back to it.
You're on
That's
one.
something
I get it.
I'm going to do.
Okay, yeah.
If I'm allowed.
Of course you're allowed.
Very good. Glad to know I'm allowed to do that. Old friend of mine.
Old buddy, old
who
pal.
will never disparage your domain.
Never.
Through how I talk to you. But, we do take a rib out on each other every once in a while.
Yeah, and it's fun.
Yeah, that's exactly what friends do then.
I thought you had something. I mean, you jump in, you interrupt.
Oh, interrupt.
So, I'm certainly there is something that you needed to discuss, right?
Pardon the interruption.
Am I mistaken by thinking that is not the case?
No,
that is
saying that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll get my words
backwards.
right. So there's something that we need to discuss. There's some housekeeping or some business we need to attend to, right? There's something that I was referencing earlier about it, like a hangout thing. Yeah.
Yes, quite right, Ron. Quite right. You're right about that. Even though your words were backwards there, you got there. So that's the one thing I'll have noticed about you. You eventually will get there if I'll just let you keep going long enough. Eventually, usually, I should say.
You were making me laugh tonight.
Here, in asterisk here.
Yeah.
Usually. And what is usually, I'd say 74% of the
75%?
You usually, asterisk, get there. 75%. The other 24% of the time, who knows what happens? That's just a boat unmoored, friend.
Yes,
Lost
it is.
at sea, as they might say. Swallowed by the giant whale off the stream of consciousness, I suppose.
I can't argue
in
that.
the outers.
The inners and the outers.
Of the sea, these ideas of yours get lost. Anyway, I could wax poetic about the ramblings and the goings on.
Nigel the
what's
poet.
and what's and haves all night long. That's what you do on these Saturday bonuses.
Yes, I guess that.
Nonetheless, we're wanting to announce. I will be posting a poll. So, you go to the polling stations and you'll get to make a choice. And we're going to leave a comment section here. We're going to need patrons to make sure they understand the comment section to suggest something that we might want to do here.
I think they understand comment sections.
A live event. So it'll be a patron-only live thing.
Yes.
Hangout there. Whether it's, maybe a screening of Fitz. You got a rough cut of it. And you're working on the audio fix. Maybe we'll do that and get some notes from the patrons for
that could be good.
From the movie, from the documentary there. Or maybe we'll just do a Q&A, or maybe we'll just do a meet and greet and a hangout. We're going to put up a poll. That'll go up.
Yeah, maybe I'll convince you to join.
After this episode drops on the Patreon. Patreon.com/Ron Singer, I believe it is.
Yeah, you nailed it.
And that'll do it. And it's interesting.
Okay.
Your trip to Serpent Mound was.
Yeah.
It's actually, it embodies the way you live your life. You didn't plan ahead very much, do you? And you end up there and the park's closed. Why don't you tell them about that?
Yeah, I'm going
to go back into the booth here and, get on the levers and the knobs. Make sure everything sounds all right.
Yeah,
And I'd like to thank you for the time, even though you said I interrupted you, but I didn't, or did not. Pardon the interruption, if you might say.
Yeah. Okay.
Michael Wilborn will be proud of that one.
Yes, he would.
Then.
So would Tony Cornish.
Also, one last thing.
Oh, there's one more thing. There is one more
I've got
thing?
one last thing. Is there a problem?
No, it's not a problem.
Yeah. Okay, I got one last little bit of information that I want to drop to you. We're putting out a call here. Putting out a call to people who might have interesting stories they want to tell. And
Good
you
idea.
might be thinking to yourself, well, that doesn't sound quite interesting. I'll tell you, don't think like that. Your story probably is quite interesting. We'd love to have you on the program. So let's get to it. Send an email, send a message. We'll see if it works out. We've got a little bit of time. I'm taking over the scheduling, trying to get more and more in tune with that. All right then, that'll do it. And I'll hand over the reins back to you, Ron.
Okay, I appreciate that, Nigel. And, Nigel makes some good points. Yeah, I know how to say it. I've already muted you, bro. So Nigel makes some good points. There is no such thing as a story that is important to someone that's not interesting. All important stories are interesting. And if you feel like in your heart or in your psychic mind or in your intuition that your story is interesting and that you want to share it, there's a reason you want to share it. And I'd love to provide you that platform. So if you feel like that is something that, you're being, I don't know, it's not a calling to come on this podcast. Okay. This is just a podcast. It's just a computer radio show. But if you feel a calling to share your story, it can be very helpful because you never know who you may connect with. You never know who may resonate with it. I had this really great conversation with my buddy Dash, and they talked about this. And I can't wait for you to hear that. And there's a lot of other great things that they were presenting on the episode that comes out next week, next Tuesday. That'll be out. The interactive nature of the paranormal experience. And time does not have a factor, whether it's the past, present, future. It's been recorded a long time ago. It's going to be recorded sometime in the future. These things are intertwined and intertangled. And I talked about the intertangled nature of phenomena and life itself with Jim Harold today. And that's going to be coming out the week after. So in a couple weeks, 2005, Jim Harold's been podcasting the paranormal podcast since 2005. Wow. And Jim and I also talked about how even people who just start a podcast or specifically a paranormal podcast, you should be welcomed to the world of doing these things. And if you feel called to do it, you should be doing it. There is no starting too late, starting too early, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. Don't worry about any of that noise. That noise is not important to your journey, figuring out, sharing your experiences, whatever they may be, paranormal, normal, otherwise. If you're feeling called to share, there's a reason for that. And I would encourage you to listen to that. And, I know a lot about DIY podcasting. I mean, no offense, Nigel, and to my buddy Alex Stein from back in the day. Did a lot of the the back end and, the heavy lifting on the scheduling and things like that. But there have been periods where, when I'm traveling, I have to do all of it, right? So I know all about that. And so I could offer some insight, potentially. Now, sometimes I'm really bad about getting back to messages. If you have patience in that area, I may be of some help to you. I mean, I'm not an expert. I don't know everything, but I can point you in the right direction. So today, what are we talking about? Well, I took a trip to Serpent Mound. Speaking of other podcasts, with Mikey from Strange Road. God, I mean, don't you love the Strange Road? They popped off on Monday of this past week. Him and Bubs, Mikey and Bubs, were back on air on Monday night. So, which is the same day that Mikey, myself, and my friend Nikki, we all went down to Serpent Mound, and it was closed because none of us bothered to see if it was open before we drove there from 3 different locations, all varying degrees of length of drive. Mine was probably on the shorter end of all of them, which was still, 100, hour and 40 minutes. But the day turned into a magical exploration nonetheless. And I'm excited to share more about that with you. The House of Fake Ops is a rock shop down there. And it used to be called Alternative Universe. And Tom and Terry, oh boy, is this a wonderful kind of situation to wander into. You wander into the House of Fake Ops shop, and it's open every single day from 12 to 5. 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. That's when you have to go. No, I'm just kidding. It's, 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. Now, I don't know if he's open on, or if they're open on pretty much every single day. Anyway, they live pretty close by, so they could be there if needed. There's this amazing trilobite display inside because Tom has been a fossil hunter, a rock hound his entire life, and specifically relocated himself to Ohio because of the ancient fossil seabed that is Ohio. Ohio is a really remarkable place for fossils from that era, which is 300 plus million years ago, with all the trilobites that are just like, water roaches, giant water cockroaches. Some of them look like squids. It's really, really cool. And his collection was leased by the Smithsonian for, I believe, 26 years. And so when the lease was up and they didn't renew, they just gave him the entire display of all the things they had created for the display. So now he's got the Smithsonian display of trilobite fossils in his shop. So cool. And some euperlite. Have you heard of euperlite? Now listen, I once upon a time, not very long ago, with 3 cousins of mine, created a crystal identification app called Crystallize. It's still out there. And it's still free to download. And we are still waiting on an update from the software company, it's been a struggle, let's just say that, but we will get there to make it even better and double the power and the brain size of the app. Nonetheless, I have never heard of this crystal, and I purchased a couple of them because it's so cool. Euperlite, Yooperlite. You put a black light up to this crystal, and the speckles are fluorescent. It is so cool. And there was also some noble shungite there, which my buddy Mikey bought me a piece to throw into my water bottles. It's supposed to help with that. And you know me, I love shungite. I got my dangly shungite earrings to protect from EMF and, earbuds, headphones, cell phone, etc. I'm a woo-woo wild one. You know that about me. So we go there and it's closed. Serpent Mound, by the way, is a place I've never been, and it's inexcusable and unforgivable. I was going to say unexcusable and unforgivable. Either way, you get the point. I should have gone there by then. But we didn't get to go into the park. Now, what did happen was a roughly hour and a half, maybe longer hangout at the House of Fake Ops, the rock shop, the crystal shop. And amazing stories were shared, interesting information, mostly I'm a fly on the wall in here. Mikey knows Tom and Terry very well, and so they're all chatting. Somebody comes in who's a rock hound, tries to sell some rocks, hoping they found some gold, but they didn't. Somebody else calls trying to sell a giant stump of petrified wood they stumbled upon in their field. And they just keep calling over and over and over again. Not wanting to take a no for an answer, essentially, from, expecting Tom to make them an offer of $50,000 or something for this, this old petrified wood stump that's in their field. Anyway, it was really, really cool. I can't suggest highly enough, if you're anywhere within a day's drive, to try to make the trip or fly into Cincinnati and make the drive. We're going to take a quick break. We got to pay the bills around here. And then when we come back, I'm going to tell you about somebody else I met that will be hopefully coming on the program quite soon. So patreon.com/Ryan Singer. $3 a month gets you no commercials. And we're going to do this. We're going to do this live hangout together, or a live stream thing, event of some kind. We'll figure it out. We'll be right back after this short commercial break, which, by the way, patrons don't have to sit through. Oh, you can hit the fast forward button. I don't know what the commercials are. I don't endorse or condone anything you may hear, but also be a free patron. You don't want to be a patron? That's money, monetarily. Go over there and do it for free. You'll love it. I love you. We'll be right back. Okay, so we're coming back in. We're ramping down in. Welcome back. And patrons, we never really went anywhere. So someone else I had the absolute pleasure of meeting was Jeff Wilson. You may know Jeff Wilson's name. He is the co-founder of, or the founder of is a founding member of the Independent Crop Circle Researchers Association, one of the world's leading experts on crop circles. Now, Mikey is friends with Jeff, and so we happened to link up with Mr. Jeff, and and then we go to a different earthworks, which is also down there. I believe it's called Fort Hill, and this incredible, huge, large, oval kind of, circuitous wall that was formed around an old fort, and really, really remarkable and totally neglected by the historical society down there that runs the park. But nonetheless, apparently there's been no archaeological digs at this place. There's been, I don't know, but anyway, the point is, I'm not going to get into all that, because at some point, Jeff and I have already talked about doing the show, and we're going to make that happen. And so it's, who knows this. He is such a wealth of information and knowledge about earthworks and crop circles that it's kind of bonkers. It's mind blowing. So he kind of gives us our own in-depth, hyper detailed tour of Fort Smith and the area. Everything that's going on down there. I went to one of the springs where you got some of the best drinking water you can get, and I chugged a whole bottle of it. It was amazing. We went to another spring spot, and the water had stopped running, and everything was kind of dry. So it was kind of alarming to Jeff, and we don't know what's going on there. But nonetheless, I'm not trying to set off alarm bells. We got this amazing tour, and because there were crop circles right across the street from Serpent Mound years ago. And is that a coincidence, or is there a reason for that? Well, we're gonna have Mr. Wilson on the program, and we're gonna see if we can't get a little bit to the bottom of that. I mean, I haven't had anybody ever on here talking about crop circles in over a decade. Can you believe it? So I am super excited about that. That'll be on the horizon for you. And I'm sure Nigel will get that scheduled sometime very soon. So it was, all in all, it was an incredible day. It was 95 degrees out. It was sun-drenched and sweat-soaked, hiking and walking around. And I do believe I've got some poison ivy on my leg, which is, my nemesis. But it was great. Well worth it. So I can't recommend enough to get to Serpent Mound. And I've got some other things that I'll be possibly announcing about me participating in a huge, incredible event that happens down there the third week of September. Potentially, we're going to see if it works out. So yeah, more on that later. I want to get into today. One of the things I wanted to get into was psi phenomena, and within that, the boundaries of psi, and and just some of the things that go along, whether there's, or some of the things that maybe parapsychologists over the years have tried to study, and what we think we may understand, and also what we don't understand about psi phenomena. Psi phenomena is very near and dear to my heart, as I'm sure it is to yours, if you are interested in the paranormal. And again, I would like to go back and reference, and I got to reach out again to Mr. Hansen. We were emailing years ago and about doing the program. I keep calling it a program, doing the show, and I don't know what happened. So I got to try to get George P. Hansen, author of, The Trickster and the Paranormal. I'm going to try to get him on the show. This is from page 311. This is Laboratory Research on Psi section. It's a subsection entitled Psi and Boundaries. The limits of psi are problematic. ESP and PK, extrasensory perception and psychokinesis, that's what those two stand for, those acronyms stand for, just making sure you know. ESP and PK transcend the usual barriers of time and distance. Thus, they conflict with conventional views of how the world works. This is nothing new. A half-century ago, C.D. Broad, an eminent Cambridge philosopher and former president of the Society for Psychical Research, acknowledged that psi violates what he called basic limiting principles. He explained that, quote, there are certain limiting principles which we unhesitatingly take for granted as the framework within which all our practical activities and our scientific theories are confined. Some of these self-evident. Others are so overwhelmingly supported by all the empirical facts which fall within the range of ordinary experience and the scientific elaborations of it that it hardly enters our heads to question them, end quote. Briefly and crudely summarized, these include an event cannot precede its cause. A person's mind cannot directly affect the material world except the nervous system. Mental life depends upon the brain. We obtain knowledge of the world only through the senses. These give the general idea of Broad's points, though he described them more elaborately and included a few qualifications. In any event, parapsychologists and their critics agree that psychic phenomena violate common sense expectations about what is possible. It is this that makes psi so controversial. However, as I will explain, the problems of limits is even more subtle and pervasive than this suggests. So what is Hansen getting into here? Something I'd like to key on, if we could spend a few moments reflecting, ruminating, digging into, excavating, this idea that we can only obtain knowledge of the world through the senses, which is the materialism view, the materialistic idea. Are we simply ignoring all the senses we truly have at our disposal, at the ready, just not ready to be at the ready with these yet? So basically, we just don't understand how many senses we truly have. That could be, one of the most plausible explanations for psi phenomena, in my opinion. One of the other things that is very interesting to me, because it directly correlates to the conversation that I've been having, ongoing conversation for the last 72 hours, apparently. Something's happening with this specific concept right now, and me specifically, Ryan Singer. And that is that an event cannot precede its cause, right? So I just happened to talk about retrocausality with Jim Harold today, and he shares a really cool story about that. Now, and then we go on and ruminate, and we kind of speculate about some things with that, but you'll have to wait a couple weeks for that. So an event cannot precede its cause. And so if you want to get into, the bones of something like that, that would disqualify retrocausality for being something that's even possible. And I don't know, it logically makes sense. If you're experiencing the world in the way in which we seem to know it and operate within it, the consensus reality is that an event cannot precede its cause, right? So every action has a reaction, right? Or something has to happen for something to happen. Something has to be done for a thing to happen, right? If events could precede their cause, it kind of makes everything topsy-turvy. I don't know if I've said topsy-turvy in quite a while. That's a fun word to say, or combo word. The idea that an event can precede its cause really flips the whole idea of linear time on its head. So an event therefore becomes the cause, and the cause becomes the event. Are we willing to go that far and totally just transpose the meanings of these things and swap them out for one another? Or so is that what it means? That the event becomes the cause and the cause becomes the event? Is it that simple to just say that? Now listen, I'm no theoretical physicist or quantum physicist or any of these kinds of things, right? So I don't know the answer. It's fun to think about. It's as a mental exercise. I can't explain fully how enjoyable it is to mentally exercise all of these strange concepts and ideas. And through the elasticity of one's mind, we can come up with some really wild ideas. And it doesn't mean we need to latch on to them necessarily. Like I'm over here, and I've been telling anybody who could listen that portals can hear us. And I don't have empirical evidence for such a thing. It just seems from all of the stories I've been hearing about portals and alleged portals and some of their behaviors moving around and such, that there's an awareness. They're definitely aware, which means they can hear, they sense us, they have an interaction to their environment, and they have agency, and that there is something deeper, there is something other outside of what we understand happening with them. And that's due to an elasticity of my mind. Probably one could argue that over 10 years of doing this podcast and, going from an interest in, reading things and to a more of a, deep diving and, on the regular researching and reading more books and more books and more books, and I don't even remember the books I've read. And there's certain nuggets and tidbits, I'm sure, that have anchored down deep in there, that have formulated this worldview that I have, this universe view that I have, this interdimensional view that now dominates my perspective. So it's the boundaries, right? So this is kind of, that's why Hansen says the limits of psi are problematic, because they transcend the usual barriers of time and distance. It's hard to make sense. It's hard to have flat footing and maintain balance when we don't know how narrow the beam we're standing on actually is, and we don't even know what that beam is composed of, or if it's straight, or if it curves down, or if we're even standing inside of it, let alone on top of it, trying to maintain our balance. So, the limits of psi are problematic in that way. When the human mind is trying to wrap itself around these incredibly complex concepts, what chance does one really have other than to just be, okay, take a breath. This is a thing that happens. I don't know why it happens. I don't necessarily have control of it, even though I'm trying to understand how to get control of it potentially. But it happens, and it's real, and I'm not mentally ill for believing that it is. I'm not seeking attention by claiming that it is. I'm just simply relating my experience. This is what people who have these abilities or, experience, psi phenomenon, PK, ESP, this is the life that they're living. And when you have experiences of the paranormal, you also you get a glimpse of that life as well when you share your stories. Now, there is something to be said. There truly is something to be said about the comfort of community in this aspect and how powerful it is. And I don't think we can underappreciate, and I don't think it's possible to undervalue it. Truly, truly, truly. And that's why these, paranormal conferences are so great. You talk about being around people who, can provide comfort through community in such a way. Those are great opportunities. If at the very least, it's just like you have to have a pretty good interest in this stuff if you're going to be attending a conference, and you have to have, I don't know, a willingness to believe. At the very least, I would say, even the skeptic who might visit these things has a willingness to believe. And an interesting idea, too, is sometimes when you dedicate so much of your life to researching and then, or investigating the paranormal, you forget that it is not such a large part of other people's lives. And in tandem with that, you forget, or it is easy for me to forget, that experiencing the paranormal, witnessing something strange, interacting with something seemingly unbelievable, isn't a even somewhat irregular happenstance or occurrence for people. Because not everybody is out there searching. Some people have, SPEs, spontaneous paranormal experiences, and they are thrust into a worldview of belief because of something that they didn't ask for and it happened. Others have that or don't have it and keep seeking, keep searching, turning over rocks, opening cobwebbed doors, digging dirty holes, right? Sifting through the sand with your fingers to see what strange object may present itself. And it is more likely that the people who are actively pursuing paranormal experience, and it makes sense that those people will have more experiences. That doesn't mean they're more profound. It doesn't mean they're better. It doesn't mean that person believes more than someone who had a SPE that they weren't looking for and became a believer. There's no, I suppose, I guess I can't say that. I was going to say that what I was going to say was there's no scale of belief, right? There's no measuring of how much belief does one person have compared to another. It doesn't need to be a comparison game. I don't like the archetypal nature of such a thing. So a belief is it's such a personal attribute. It's an intimate characteristic for each individual. So it's a fool's game to try to measure belief in comparison to another. It's very nuanced. Someone may believe in ghosts and not believe in Bigfoot. Someone may believe in Bigfoot and not believe in ghosts. Someone may believe that aliens have been here the whole time. Someone else may believe that it's always and always has been, will be angels. Someone else might think it's demons. Someone else might believe in the Fae, but not believe in, any of the monotheistic gods. Belief is very nuanced. And, God, it's a fool's game to try to figure out why someone believes something the way they do. We try to put ourselves in their shoes, potentially, and try to better understand maybe why someone would say a certain thing or believe a certain thing. And we could just ask them why, and they might not even have a good answer. They might not have formulated a reason or a sequence of reasons that seemingly makes sense to even them, other than I just do, or something of that ilk. And that's fine too, I suppose. Because you gotta let other people have their agency. You gotta let other people, have their own, they gotta come to everything else. They gotta come to everything on their own. We all do. Sometimes we hear somebody say something and we get jolted into I'm on board with that. I will accept further information, but you don't need to give me further information for me to believe. I've been jolted into those situations more than a few times. We're going to take one last break here, and then we're going to get back to the program, and we're going to dig a little bit more in, and I'm going to do a random book draw in the Book of Symbols, and we're going to see if it ties in. Am I going to make it tie in? You bet your sweet tush. But who knows? Maybe it'll be a hard one. Maybe it'll be an easy one, or maybe it'll be so obvious that we know the universe is guiding our hand on this particular evening. Patreon.com/Ryan Singer. No commercials. Thank you to all the patrons, and we'll be right back. And I'm glad to be back. And I'm glad that you're back if you're still with us. I really hope you are. I want to pick up where we left off, talking about psi and boundaries, and again from George P. Hansen's incredible tome, The Trickster and the Paranormal. The definition problem. The very definition of psi reflects the problem of limits. And one of the occasionally voiced, though invalid, objections to parapsychology is that psi is negatively defined. True, psi is defined in terms of what it is not. The Parapsychological Association's position paper, Terms and Methods in Parapsychological Research states, when an event is classified as a psi phenomena, it is claimed that all known channels for the apparent interaction have been eliminated. This definition requires psi to circumvent known boundaries. It specifies that all normal alternative causes can be ruled out before psi can be deemed to have occurred. Thus, psi is defined by what is excluded. Difficulty is built into the definition, but it suffices until the phenomena are better understood. The definition's advantage is that it emphasizes the matter of limits. Psi is placed in opposition to other causes known to science. Despite its drawbacks, the definition reflects, let me turn the page here, the current state of knowledge, and it guides researchers. Before psi is inferred to have occurred in an experiment, normal modes of influence and communication must be excluded. Much of the effort in formal research is devoted to that task. Anyone making a scientific claim for a psi occurrence shoulders a similar burden. So, I just can't tell you enough how wonderful it is to have a book like this existing out in the world. And this chapter goes on, talks about J.B. Ryan and his legacy, and some other things. And Hansen admittedly even states that it's a paltry summarization of the history of parapsychological research. And I got to tell you, there are some whopper of books out there that go through the history of parapsychology, and they are whoppers. I don't know if I've ever used the word whopper before to describe a fat daddy, but we're talking about stretch, do your stretches, because there's some heavy lifting going on, and make sure you have a fresh notebook where you can write notes, and a bunch of sticky tabs or whatever else you use to or pencil. I don't know. Some people are very against drawing in books. I have never really been that against it. Highlighter, yeah, sure, go ahead if you want to highlight. Just make sure the pages aren't too thin or it'll bleed through, and use a highlighter, go for it. As someone who has published a book, I would say go for it. I'd love that. Augment it, if you will. Mine's mostly drawings, but you can add to the drawings if you're so moved. That's the interactive nature of all art, right? It's now yours, as David Lynch would say. Or actually, Ken Burns had said that in his masterclass. Once you put out a movie, it's not your movie anymore. And Wilco has a song about that. It's art is not yours anymore once you release it to the world. And I'm on board with that. So, So speaking of which, going into the world, let's do a random book draw from the Book of Symbols, which is like I said, it's a gift from the Stonebergs, Dave Stone and his wife, Katie Strandberg. They have that great podcast, The Stonebergs. So you should check that out. This book was gifted to me by them. So the Book of Symbols, Reflections on Archetypal Images by Taskin. Oh, here we go. I opened up to whale. Okay, so we already know that whales are awesome, and that whales have whales have played major parts in UFO movies, etc. Let's just dive in and see what it says about the whale. Oh, this is great. Whale is the spirit of the deep, the creature that mirrors its incomparable size and swallow as ocean, unconscious, memory, night, womb, and underworld. Sometimes glimpsing in the distance white pearls of briny exhalation, the breaching head and dark flukes, we have thought of the cosmos becoming out of the primeval waters. In a constellation of silvery stars in the dark abyss of space, we have discerned the swimming shape of Cetus, the whale, whose astral eye feels like the eye of an intelligence within ourselves that is more than the ego. Our ancestors called the whale dragon, sea monster, and giant fish, projections that carried innate fears of how easily existence and reason are swallowed. In the myth of the night sea journey, the solar hero, trapped in the belly of the whale, harrows hell and overcomes death by finding a way out. With the help of a god, I'm sorry, Nigel's over here like screaming and doing jumping jacks. Because do you remember what Nigel said at the beginning of this? I swear this seems like it's a setup. It seems planned. Remember when he was talking about me rambling and getting swallowed into the deep abyss of the sea or something like that? Something like that. And now we're reading this shit. This is great. So yeah, Nigel, I get it. We're all getting goosebumped over here. At least me and he are. Okay, let's get back to it. So the solar hero trapped in the belly of the whale harrows hell and overcomes death by finding a way out. With the help of a god culture, he is disgorged or cuts away the heart of the whale or sets afire. Images of human consciousness severing connection with the matrix of nature. Tikigak Inuit whalers portrayed the soul of primal woman and primal whale as one. Her igloo was a whale, its passage of reassembled whale bones an area of birth, death, danger, and initiation. In some stories, woman and whale are one and the same victim. When the men hunted the bowhead whale, their wives remained inert and passive in a form of shamanic male-female magic with which to lure the whale into passively surrendering itself so that its depth might reanimate igloo, community, and landscape. The Hebrew Leviathan at first meant an attribute of the Creator and may have literally referred to the great crocodile, but the word symbolically came to represent an adversary of immense proportions and devilish ferocity, an image adopted and amplified by whalers. All the subtle demonisms of life and thought, all evil, to crazy Ahab, were visibly personified in Moby Dick. He piled upon the whale's white hump the sum of all the general rage and hate felt by his whole race from Adam down, wrote Melville in his famous novel. What did we slay when we massacred the whale? in the frenzied conflict between our terror of and attraction to the dark void of our unknown being. The blue whale can grow to 100 feet long and weigh 200 tons, the largest creature to have ever existed. The sperm whale has the biggest brain on Earth. The toothed whales, sperm, orca, and dolphin, as well as the huge, more solitary, toothless whales that filter tiny crustaceans through sieve-like flexible plates of baleen, possess brain structures similar to our own and evolved spindle cells, neurons that link to functions like self-awareness, compassion, and linguistic expression, perhaps 15 million years earlier than humans. The rhythms and refrains of the humpback whale, with a million information-carrying changes of frequency, represent the single most elaborate vocal display in the natural world. Oriented to the magnetic fields of Earth by particles of iron oxide in their brains, whales travel vast distances to breeding grounds, court, copulate, give birth, and suckle their infants undersea, recognize themselves and their companions, invent tools, play, learn, teach, and help one another, grieve, and dream. In the protected birthing grounds of Baja's Laguna San Ignacio, gray whales, some with old harpoon scars, have recently been coming, sometimes with their young, alongside the boats of whale watchers. The baby gray glided up to the boat's edge, and then the whole of his long, hornbill-shaped head was rising up and out of the water directly beside me. A huge ovoid eye slowly opening to take me in. I'd never felt so beheld in my life, says a writer. Does the whale sense that the human ego, so long detached, yearns to reclaim its ancient mother? Then we might sound our depths in the spirit of the consummate sounder, and let imagination assume buoyant bulk and insulating blubber, store oxygen in muscles, slow the heart rate to meet the pressure of the bottom, and descend from our illuminated surfaces to the ocean floor of primordial activity, lighting the darkness with explosions of sonar, navigating the passages of ocean canyons, the debris of submerged volcanoes, and all the pulsing, appetitive forms stirring and swelling the sea within. Whale. From the Book of Symbols. Wow, I got into that. Oh, sorry, that was me putting it down on the table. I hope you enjoyed that. Maybe something in there resonated with you deeply, pun intended. Wow, that is really funny, though, that we pulled that. And are we going to make a connection here? Of course we are. We already have, almost immediately on the surface level of what Nigel was saying I do on these episodes, right? Rambling off into the deep and being swallowed, right? Am I being swallowed by our ancient mother, the archetype of total wisdom and, I don't know, I would say musings, potentially. But when it comes to psi phenomena and the unknown and the limits and the boundaries, consider the idea that whales 15 million years earlier than humans had developed this idea, some of these connections between self-awareness. That is, God, it's almost shattering to think about. It's one of those things, I guess, that you think about the beauty and the majesty of these incredibly gorgeous and profound creatures. And I mean, I can see it in my eye, in my mind's eye right now. It is overwhelming and shattering to me right now to consider the exuberance of life and joy, and in some respect the freedom of the deep ocean. And not just because it's the biggest thing out there and it can do whatever it wants. I think that would be doing a disservice to the whale and to its spirit, to think of it in such a way. And that's not why I don't know, maybe feel envious of the whale in this moment. It's not because of that. It's imagine this life where you're floating through your environment and you're submerged within it. And occasionally you must reemerge for air. But you can go down for a really long time. And when you come back up for air, what's there? It's either the sun or it's the moon and the stars. But there's something else. There's something that's pulling you back up because you need a breath. And whether that's just, too plaintive of an idea, it's not really important. I don't know if I've ever loved a whale more in my life than I do right now. I got to watch some movies on whales after this. I'm going to be up until 5 a.m. just watching whale videos and just probably crying about how much I love a whale. I can't wait to go outside and just tell people how much I love a whale. God, I love whales. Why am I so emotionally moved by whale? These archetypes are deep. They're deep, man. God, that one got me. And I ain't ashamed of it. Whoa, Zoe says. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I certainly did. I don't feel like I'll ever be the same. Nigel and I have bonded, and I'm just going to call Nigel the whale from now on. I think I'm going to call Nigel the whale. This is great. Thank you for listening to the program. I hope you're enjoying your life. I know times can be volatile. Try to find some peace if you can. I'd recommend the Expand app by the Monroe Institute. Try to get centered before you shove out into the world and you're pushed and you're pulled. I'll see you at a live show maybe this summer, ryansarencomedy.com. If not, I'll see you at the watering hole on the astral plane. Maybe there'll be a whale there.